I just find very inspiring and very encouraging. And she's someone that kind of really emulates the personal brand and just walks into this authentic place in her life and has gotten to this place. And so I think you guys are going to hear a lot from her and learn a lot from her. She is a motivational speaker, but as well, she is also a comedian, which I think is absolutely incredible. But today we get to just hear a little bit about her journey and what brought her to where she is right now as a marketing expert and a coach and all of these extra things. So thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. So let's just talk about who you were when you were younger and what were some of the influences that you feel like really shaped you as a kid?
It's interesting. So I was actually born in Spain, as you can tell. And we lived all over the place throughout Europe and the UK before coming to Canada. And I would say one of the biggest things that have shaped me was that ability to create connection wherever we went. Because even when we moved to Canada, we bopped around a little bit. We moved from Aberdeen, Scotland to Airdrie, which is a small town just north of Calgary, and where I live now. And then we moved all the way across the country to Nova Scotia on the East Coast and lived just outside of Halifax for a while, and then moved around a bunch of times and switched schools. And I would say the younger years of my life in a positive way, but also in a little bit of a negative way, I learned that ability to connect, but I also created within myself a bit of a chameleon. So being something for someone else as opposed to just being authentic to myself, which was something I definitely had to learn my way out of as I got into my 20s and figuring out who I am. But I've always had, and even still today, that organic just ability to get to know somebody, to make them feel comfortable. So I think that really shaped as I was younger, bopping around to different places.
It's true. You really do connect. And I can totally relate to that piece of that chameleon and adapting. It's almost like shedding that skin of, okay, who am I really? How did you find that piece?
I definitely feel like it was a bit of that, the analogy of the onion. There was certainly not just one day where a switch was flipped for me and I was able to live my true authentic self. It certainly was a process that I believe it started probably in high school and taking inventory at different times, who I was spending my time with and what I was feeling like, what I was getting into. Was this in alignment? Is this really who I want to be? And I just remember having certain moments throughout my young adulthood, having a bit of a like third, party view, looking down on myself. Is this really who you want to be right now? Those little moments that got me thinking around the idea of you can be whoever you want to be. So if you're having those thoughts, maybe you should be making some different choices. And I've always been an introspective person, somebody who's taken account. I think about myself a lot, and I think about how I'm showing up, and I think about my purpose and my future. And so for me, I could feel in certain cases that I was deviating from that real truth that I had in me that was saying, you have something to give to this world. And it's up to you to make the choices to align yourself up with that path or not.
How did you deal with kind of letting go of maybe friendships, or as you're talking about, is this really who you want to be? Maybe it's a job, all of these things that you have to make those choices. How did you deal with that?
Yeah, it's interesting because I feel like it's still a part of my life. Like even as an adult, probably some of the most difficult decisions I've made as it has been around cutting out friends, quote unquote, best friends, even at times that were toxic for me. And I'm a very loyal person. It's one of my top values. And I can take a lot, which is a strength and a weakness at the same time. But It was, again, I think back to that same question rooted in, is this really how you want to be living your life? Is this really what you want to be feeling like? Like in those cases, I think it is a hard thing to choose yourself sometimes over what they're going to think or over their feelings. Sometimes is a very difficult thing for a personality type like mine.
Mhm.
And again, there's no magic in it. There just becomes, there's this great quote by Anais Nin that I can't quote directly, I don't think right now, but it's something to the effect of, the day came when it was more uncomfortable to stay in the bud than it was to break out of it. And like that butterfly analogy, where you grow so much that it just becomes impossible to stay in that toxic place, or to be around people that don't fuel you or feed you or grow you. It's too painful. And you're like, I don't know what's on the other side of this, but what I know is this doesn't work. So I got
That's
to go make something that works.
That quote is everything. That I love that. I think that's such a powerful statement. And yeah, there is that moment, like you said, this bud that wants to expand, like where you can choose to stay a bud or you can choose to expand. And so you chose to expand. So, what did that kind of bring you to? What were some of the paths that, I'm sure it's happened at different times you expand through your journey? What were those moments where you're like, I expanded and I grew and I can see that and look back at that, and then this was the next bud.
Yeah, I think there are two parallels along my life. One is in business and the other is my personal life. And so I'll just talk about my business evolution for a second, because it was just as emotional. Just because it's business doesn't mean it doesn't rock you to your core and scare the skin off your face. I remember I was working for a technology company. I had the great privilege. I had a really cool career up to this point, doing a lot of different things. I was in radio and television and doing some cool stuff. I was on the stage as an actor, and just figuring out where I was. And I got into marketing when I worked at this radio station that I was on the air for. And then a friend of a friend ended up having a tech startup with a really wealthy man who had ties to Disney and Lucasfilms and all of these huge heavy hitters. And I got on board in the startup of that company, and over the course of 6 years became their event marketing coordinator globally. So I got to go all over the world. I got to work with the biggest brands on the planet, like Red Bull and Coca-Cola and McDonald's and NASCAR, like Formula One, like you name it. I was NFL. I got to go to the Super Bowl 6 years in a row. Like it was crazy stuff, and host like a VIP party at these things. Yeah. Met Snoop Dogg, like all the things. And it was a pretty rocking job for a young, budding entrepreneur and somebody who had high hopes for their life, somebody who was very ambitious. I was out of town probably 3 weeks out of the month. And at this point in time, I was about 28, 28, 29. And I was having a terrible experience with some people internally at that place. It got really toxic, almost abusive, I would say. And I had to quit. Like it was just so unhealthy with all the travel and being away from home. I was just losing my soul because the only people I was interacting with was these toxic people, and I was being treated terribly, and I wasn't sleeping, and I wasn't seeing my friends, and there was no refueling happening whatsoever. And so I had to quit this job. But what I knew was I have it in me to start my own marketing company. I knew it. Like it wasn't even a question. It wasn't like, could I or couldn't I? It was like, no, I can. It just scares the crap out of me. So I had to grapple with this knowledge of, I have all of this experience. I've just had a front row seat to the top marketers on the planet. I just worked with them. I have all of their emails. I could text them. I could call them. Like I've had an education in this better than you would ever get in any university. And so I distinctly remember that first leap was massive in taking control of my life as well. So it wasn't just a business move. It was, I can no longer be a part of this organization, and I'm choosing to start my own business. I could have easily just quit that job and gotten another one. Anybody would have hired me in the marketing space. I could have worked for any agency, no problem. But I just knew that wasn't the right thing to do. Intuitively, absolutely, I knew. And so that first leap, I didn't know anything about starting a business. I made a million mistakes, but slowly and surely, I got clients. Within that first year, I was making just as much money almost as I was making at that tech company. And within the years that followed, I was getting a great reputation. Social media had just been starting up at that time. And I jumped on the bandwagon. I learned what needed to be learned, and I started training small businesses and made that a bit of my niche. And from there, I could probably count like 4 other pivotal risks that I had to take. One of which was going back to university to do my psych degree. The other of which was closing down that company to take a job that was in complete alignment with what it was I wanted to do for my life, which, just the quick snippet, it was the Calgary Youth Justice Society. And they had asked me to take part in writing a leadership program for youth at risk that was going to be put forward to the Alberta Board of Education. And here we are 11 years later. It's still running. It's very successful. I wrote the program. I went and worked for them. One of the best choices I ever made. But then the day came and that little voice came back. There's another thing for you to do. And I had to take another leap. I had to leave that organization that I cared about so much and the work that we were doing, and launch back out on my own as a leadership consultant and public speaker. And throughout the journey of every single one of those pivots, it goes back to that same thing in my personal life, where you have to choose to listen to that voice. Like there are no victims. I believe that we are one of 2 things at any given time. We're either a student or a victim, and you get to choose. You're either learning from it and growing from it and expanding as a student, or you are suffering from the reality of the choices that you've made that were not in alignment with where it is you need to go and who it is you want to be.
So good and so true. And I love that, because it puts the ownership on you, and it's not on anybody else. It's not on the things that have happened to you or an experience. There's only one common denominator in how you go through these, and it's
Totally.
you, right?
And
that's hard. Yeah. Actually, in my own personal journey in this year, just recognizing that everything around you is a reflection of what's going on inside of you. And when you get to that point where you're the one who has to take ownership for things going on in your life, it's a whole other level. You talk about the onion, it's that next level. So I totally agree with you. I know that you have found your voice, and I know that evolves and we grow, but I do truly feel like you have become this authentic person, and you keep talking about that little voice. So what would you say to people that are sitting here listening and they're like, I get that nudge all the time, and how do they step out and face fear? What would you say for them?
I'm sure we've all heard the fear acronym, false evidence appearing real. Have you ever heard that?
Oh.
You've never? Oh, okay. There you go. It's for free. I think oftentimes that fear voice is something that we need. I don't think we should live without fear, because sometimes you need to hear the voice of it. You need to. Elizabeth Gilbert, who wrote Eat, Pray, Love, she wrote another great book called Big Magic. And I recommend it for anybody who's in a creative space, whether that's creative in your business or creating art or whatever it is. And there's one snippet out of the book where she talks about fear as a necessary passenger on the journey. But the trick is that they don't ever get to drive. They don't get to hold the map. They don't get to choose the radio station. Fear's in the back seat. And you can say, thank you for sharing. Thank you. But we're going to go this way, because sometimes you need to have some balance in what you're looking at. Fear keeps us alive sometimes. Should I be jumping off this building right now? Or watch any random fail video and you'd be like, you should have been afraid of that a little bit. But to somebody in life, looking at stepping out or stepping forward or stepping beyond the limitations maybe they've already been living within. To me, it is really getting down into my truth. And I know that might sound a little bit woo-woo, but like I said before, like I knew that I could start that business. It was all of these yeah buts and what ifs that were the things piling on top of me. And sometimes I feel like the how is not necessarily our responsibility. Yes, we need to be organized. Yeah, like I'm not saying to go and do something drastic because you just feel it. I think there's something also irresponsible about that. But I think once you've taken the time and you've settled in with yourself, you've gotten quiet and you've closed down all the other voices. I do believe that we have a guidance system built in to us that's in alignment with our values and in alignment with our strengths, our greatest strengths. That's the path I think that is laid out in front of us if we choose to take it. And that's where the fear comes in. That's where it is, do I listen to that voice that's guiding me down that path, despite the fact that there could be some what ifs, negative what ifs? Or do I listen to that truth in myself? Do I believe in myself? Do I believe in my capacity? Do I believe in my creativity? Can I learn how to do this? Can I develop the skills on the way? Nobody ever starts out knowing everything at the beginning. Like parenting, nobody knows what the hell they're doing at the beginning. You could read all the books in the world on parenting and still not have a clue. You figure it out as you go along. You align your actions and your words with your values. You follow your intuition. There are a million examples that we could pull out around not knowing before you start and it working out just fine. And so that's where I would go, is give yourself some examples of things that you didn't know before you began, and start really, and write down the voice of, what is fear telling me? What if this happens? Okay, what if this happens? And then write a line on the page and go to the other side and say, okay, what if the opposite happens? Like,
I love
what if
that.
you succeed? Because we always what if ourselves into oblivion on the negative side. But what if there was this great story of a lady, and I think it's on Netflix, it's called Homeless to Harvard. And this chick was homeless in New York City. Her parents were drug addicts. I think they had both died. And she asked herself one day, what if I could just get into high school? Because she didn't have an address, so she couldn't get into school. She didn't have a guardian, so she couldn't get into school. What if I could? And then she ended up getting in. And then she was like, what if I could get straight A's? What if I could? And she ended up getting straight A's. And then she said, what if I could get into one of the top universities in the country? She got into Harvard. What if somebody would offer to pay my tuition? What if I could get a scholarship? She got the scholarship, and she goes around the world speaking now. They've made a movie about her because she asked herself, what if, on the right side of the what if.
Love it. And I think that is, to me, that picture of, I don't know how you feel about just your thoughts and the words that you speak and the things that you attract into your life. I know that you're someone that does that, but maybe talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, well, we're constantly creating. I believe that we are paving the path ahead of us with the thoughts in our head and the words in our mouth. There's a really amazing coach for elite athletes out there, and I'm failing on his name right now. I just listened to a podcast from Lewis Howes, and he's in there. So School of Greatness podcast, search it up, and he's in there somewhere. But what he does is he takes teams, so the top teams, top Major League Baseball, basketball, NFL, NHL, you name it, Olympians, all of these top athletes. And when they start hitting this thing where they start failing, that's when coaches bring him in. And what he says is, I can't necessarily get you to think different. So I'm not even going to try. That is something that we need to do. We need to think different, but I'm not even going to go there because I can't control that in a short period of time, that we need to change things around so you guys can start winning. He says, what I can get you to do is stop saying stupid stuff out of your mouth. And he shows these videos. It's crazy. Like this one, and apparently this is a moment in Major League Baseball that goes down in the history books. But this guy, I don't know who he was, some athlete, he was being interviewed the day before the World Series. And he said out of his mouth, the worst thing that could happen was I miss a line drive on second base and we lose the game. Guess what happened the next day? He missed a line drive on second base and they lost the World Series. But he spoke it out of his mouth the day before. And there's literally 100 examples. So what he gets teams to do is just stop saying the negative thing. From, I'm starting to feel sick, I think I have COVID, like whatever. So like whatever it is, from that to, I'll never make it. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm never going to make it in business as an entrepreneur. I'm so stupid. Whatever, like any of those negative things are literally like a dagger to your future. Beyond that, it is the thoughts. I'll throw another quote at you that I love. I'm trying to think of who it is and I can't. It's a Googleable thing though. Your thoughts become your words, become your actions, become your habits, and your habits become your character. So that's how powerful our words are, that they literally create who we are. So when we want to be somebody who's secure and confident and strong and believes in ourselves and is charismatic and capable, it really starts here, but check it at the door if you can't get through, if you can't shift this part. So I believe 100%. And it's not magic. It's not woo woo. It's just, you could go deep into some quantum physics talking about it, which I deep dive and nerd out on that stuff all the time. But you're literally creating your future with every word that you speak.
And how important is it to write things down and set goals? Is that something that you do in your life?
Yes. As a matter of fact, I just got, this is my 2021 goals journal.
We didn't plan this.
And we did not plan this. It just came by the Purelator just now. And it is full of just what is powerful thoughts. This is in this month, like there's quotes, and it's literally, I set up my whole year. This is just goals. This isn't a day timer. This is just like, what's up? And there's actually, she sends it with, it's two, like this is the first half of the year. This is the second half of the year. This is not a paid sponsorship, but it's called Elegant Excellence. Look her up. She's amazing.
We need a PDF of quotes, books, resources.
Yeah, right. I know. Yeah. But that to say, I believe in goals and writing things down when it doesn't become, and I want to use the word religious, because sometimes I think people use it as a formula to scapegoat out of actually needing to do the work. If it's just a formula, like I did the thing, now I should have that thing. And there's no checking of the boxes. This is going to take me, I'm excited to dig into this weekend to start really just putting forth what are those desires for this year and writing out what are those things that are holding me back, or maybe just free writing around the noise going on in my head. And that to me is where fears pop up. Like I can really see the voice of fear come up and be like, oh, there you are. Hi. Like, I see you. That's not my voice. That's not what I think. And being able to almost just uncover the layers of BS that we sometimes get clouded with when things are going crazy. Like this has been a crazy year. I can't believe we're almost a year of COVID coming up. It's just insane to me that we've been doing what we've been doing collectively as a global society and everything else that's been happening in this world. And sometimes that weighs heavy and can hold us hostage a little bit to being able to feel and feeling like we can dream and have a desire for our future. I know certainly that's been the case for me, where it's like, I can't think of next Tuesday. I can only think of what am I doing in 2 hours, or what am I doing after I finish my breakfast? Some days it literally has been that heavy. And so for me, writing stuff down clears that fog out and helps me come back into alignment with what's really going on.
Yeah. And I think that's just really something to grab hold of for everybody, is taking the time to however it looks for you, if it's dictating into a phone and re-listening to your thoughts, or writing
Mm,
it down, or just being still and quiet, because there is so much noise. And like you're saying right now, it is heavy out there, and if you can't clear the clouds, then you just get caught up in it. And so I think
yeah.
that's huge for this season. And the whole purpose in me even doing this is just to inspire people to push past and to pivot and to find their voice. And so I think that's a huge key piece in all of that. So thank you. You articulated it beautifully. I love it. So I know you've recently shifted a little bit and then COVID happened, but that's still, you're still doing things virtually and stuff. So maybe just talk about this recent pivot of the comedy stuff and how you stepped into that.
Yeah, it's interesting. So it's always been a little part of me. I've always enjoyed making people laugh above anything else. And like I was saying, when I was a kid, that's a part of how I made friends and created connection, was with humor. And certainly throughout my career in business and in my personal life, that has been an element that I find is consistent with what draws people to me, or what helps them when I'm talking, when I'm speaking publicly. It helps them learn better when I'm using humor in whatever it is that I'm talking about. And again, for a season of my life, I was working with youth at risk, so teenagers that don't give a what you do for a living or how you feel in the moment. If they're not feeling it, they will let you know. And these are kids with piercings and neck tattoos and all the things. And I really used humor in that setting to break down barriers and to bring people in, to let them loosen up and let down their guard. And how many times I had people say to me, "Have you ever done stand up comedy?" And I had to say, for 10 years, maybe even more, it just scared me. Like, it was just something that I was like, to think about getting up on a stage. Now, I speak for a living. I've always loved public speaking. That is not something I've ever been afraid of. I've been speaking publicly since I was like 14 years old, literally. I just could not imagine saying, I think I'm so funny that I'm going to write jokes and then get up on a stage in front of a ton of strangers and test out how funny those jokes are. Like, it just was like, I don't know. I don't know how to write those jokes. I don't know how to be funny like that. And my daughter, who is quite shy and introverted, she was in a summer camp when she was 14, 13 or 14. And they asked her, they had to do a thing at the end of the camp. And they could choose like an improv skit with their friends or a couple other things. And one of the options was to do like a 3-minute stand-up routine. And she chose a stand-up routine. And I was like, oh my gosh, if she can do it, what am I doing? And to be honest, I actually went and watched Bohemian Rhapsody, the story of Queen. And I watched it in the theater back in the day when it came out. And that next morning, I was so inspired because he just was so unapologetic. He was just so secure in what he had and the creativity, and he owned it, and he didn't care who didn't want to hear it. He didn't care who said no. Like, I love the scene when you want to go down in history as the guy who lost Queen, or you're going to go down in history. Like, there was a record producer who was like, we can't put Bohemian Rhapsody on the air. And it's a great scene. It's epic. Yeah. And the next morning I just said, I need to do that. I need to be that confident with the thing that I love the most about me, is that gift. And so I sent an email to Broken City, which is they do a Monday night comedy night, and they let 2 amateurs get up, and it's a full house, and there's professional comedians that get up and do their thing. And anyway, I booked it there. I didn't have anything written. I didn't have a set. I didn't have anything ready, but I booked it. He gave me a date. I love a deadline. It's my greatest motivator. And yeah, I did stand up for the first time, probably 3 years ago now. And it was amazing. I loved every second of it. It felt phenomenal. It's definitely a shift in the path. It's not that I'm abandoning anything at this point. So it's a bit of a different kind of shift. Whereas before I was like quitting a job and starting a business and leaving one for the other. I incorporate humor in everything that I do. When I'm teaching leadership, when I'm talking to people about anything, I incorporate humor. But I love this new slant. And there's going to be some more. I've got a YouTube channel started and I've got some stuff going that I'll be putting up soon that is going to just, yeah, it's going to be completely hilarious.
And what I think is really key here is that you're just, I don't know, this is something I'm experiencing as well, is it's like you did, like you said, you didn't quit a job. It's just like you're taking these gifts and abilities that are in you and just moving into a different space. And it's still the same you, it's still the same authenticity. And it's just, okay, I'm going to shift a little bit this way. And so I think when people get a hold of that, it doesn't have to look so extreme all the time either. And I think the big picture is figuring out who that is in order to bring that to what you do. And it can be anything, right?
And I think it's giving yourself permission to be a little fluid with it. Because I think sometimes being drastic, as much as it's like, whoa, that's so heroic, sometimes getting creative within the reality and in the space, working on it or figuring it out, that's the heroic thing. That's the piece that grows you. If we're trying to define what heroic is, that's the piece that actually peels another layer of the onion off and brings you closer to yourself. That's what makes you stronger, is that idea of being in the same space and allowing there to be new permissions and expansion within that space.
Yeah. So good. It's like the words in my mouth, you're just like speaking, like it's so good. I think
I love it.
I knew it will be so good to connect with you and get you on here, because I do think with practical ways, but then also with your marketing experience, you do really get what that looks like. So for someone who is watching this and they're like, okay, I'm going to listen to my intuition, I'm going to write things down, and I'm going to do all these things, but now they're embarking on this space of like personal branding, what would you say to them? Like for you, if you could go all over and you could start out with all the things you've learned, what would be something you would do differently?
Whew, that's a big question, because I learned so much on the way. I think there's one lesson, and I actually think I had a lock on this, so it wouldn't be something that I'd change. It's something I'm very grateful that I had. And I know a lot of people, they get held up in the perfectionism of how perfect things need to be before they start. And I've never been a perfectionist, as personal admission. Maybe I wish I was a bit more of one at different points in my life. I think my accountant certainly wishes I was more of a perfectionist right now. But I think one of the biggest lessons when you're starting a new thing is messy progress is okay. Done is always better than not done. Done, not perfect, is always going to be better than not done. A friend of mine in university used to say, C's get degrees, which isn't something I would necessarily like write in a book anywhere. It's true. At the end of the day, if it's going to hold you back, if it's going to make you overanalyze, if it's going to stop your progress, just do it. And every time you do it, every time you put yourself out there, it's going to get better, and you're going to hone it. It's going to work. I have one of my best friends. I just got off the phone with her before I got on with you. And she started a new business in a pivot. So she used to be in the fitness world. Her business went under because of COVID. She pivoted hard. She started a new business, a coaching business. So she's been working from home for 15 years. She's got the systems and processes on lock. So she started a coaching business around productivity and alignment with your values and everything like that. But the girl does not even have a website. Okay. She has a PDF with a course description on it. She doesn't have a brand. She didn't, no logo. She doesn't pick colors. She's done nothing. She's now on her second cohort. So they're just starting up next week, and she's 10 people for 3 months. She made $22,000 last week.
Amazing.
Without a website, with a stinking PDF, with an Instagram account and a pretty face, right? Like she said, we talk about this all the time. She's like, messy progress. I'm figuring it out as I go. She just finished her first course. She did it a beta program at a lower rate. She had 10 people in the program. She just finished that 3 months. She was recording sessions. She was figuring out the systems and the processes. It was just messy progress. She was figuring it out as she was doing it. And think about that. That is actual dollars and cents. Like literally, she made $22,000 last week without a website. So when people are like, oh, I gotta get my website together, no, not in this age of social media. You got something to say, get your ass out there on social media, put yourself, like, do whatever you've got to do to just start somewhere. And then the second thing I would say beyond messy progress is that learning mindset. So again, that student versus victim mentality, because those negative thoughts as an entrepreneur, as somebody starting something, as you well know, like it is lonely when you're beginning something, and there are going to be haters. There are going to be people that think you should or shouldn't have done it. There are going to be people who, your mom's gonna be like, well, I told you, you should have worked at Goldman Sachs, whatever it is. Like there's always going to be voices of people that don't agree with what your choices were. And sometimes they can really get you down. But if you have a learning mindset, even your mistakes are currency. Even your mistakes are wins, right? There's no failure until you stop getting up. And so I would say, especially somebody starting out, like really give yourself the grace and the patience to learn, to grow from it. Always ask yourself after any failure, after any like facepalm moment, what was I thinking? After any one of those moments, get out a pen and a piece of paper and say, okay, what did I learn here? Because the only time it's a loss is when you don't take that inventory, because I guarantee there are lessons everywhere you turn, especially in the first couple of years of business. So those would be the two big things I would say starting out that would be essential. And I guess maybe even one more, if I can throw it in there. When you get to the place where you can hone things and make them sharper and make them better, don't ever settle for that messy progress as the continuum. Like when I could afford to get my brand done, I don't have anything with me right now. Like I paid a girl a lot of money to design my name and go through the creative on my colors. Like it was very intentional. And I know these days with Canva and all that stuff, it's good. Start with that, go for it. But as you're moving forward, I would say really challenge yourself once you get to that stage. Invest the effort and time and energy towards perfecting things and honing things and sharpening things. Because especially from a branding standpoint, that's, I think, key as you build and as you grow. I don't think you need it to start, but I think you need it to grow.
I love that, because I think that what often happens is people spend more time on those branding things, but yet they don't even know what they're selling or who they are. And so that often changes so many times. But when you do the steps and you figure it out and do the beta programs and whatever, then you actually have something to brand around. So I've been hearing that a lot in different coaching and stuff. And so I think that's really good advice, guys. Like, just get out there, get dirty, do the thing. Amazing. So good. So thank you so much. Like, where can people find you if they want to find you and creep on your stuff?
Creep on me. Yes, I am Jenny B _YC on Instagram. And I'm Jenny B on LinkedIn and Facebook as well. I don't think I have the YYC on those, but if you Google me, if you Google Jenny B, you should be able to find any of them. My website is jennyb.ca. And I have started a YouTube. I have a couple of stand-up bits in there. I've got some leadership stuff in there I'm not trying to be funny in that stuff. I'm in the messy progress right now. I've got a working title called The Funny Side with Jenny B. So it's like looking at the funny side of stuff that like leadership or relationships or what. It's just fun in the funny side. And I don't even have enough followers right now to give you like a URL, because you have to have 100 followers to customize your URL. I think I have 30. If you want to go follow me, I'd really love that. And you would literally have to Google Jennifer Barroll. My name's spelled somewhere around here, I'm sure. YouTube. And I'm the one that comes up. If you Google Jenny B YouTube, you're going to get a very beautiful Latino singer who is named Jenny B. It's not me, unfortunately. She's pretty hot though.
We'll make sure that we have your proper handles and links. And everyone, please go follow Jenny Barroll. Don't follow Jenny B, but follow Jenny B and other things.
On YouTube, Jenny B on all the other things on YouTube. Okay. Just Google Jennifer Barroll YouTube. And if you follow me, I will be so grateful. I'm actually taking a course right now by Sunny Lenarduzzi. It's the YouTube for Bosses course. And I do want to say, if any of you out there are wanting to get into YouTube stuff, I'm only on the third part of the course. I think it's a 5-part course. And it is worth its weight in gold. She is not sponsored. I paid for the course. There's no, I have met her, but it's amazing. It is absolutely amazing. Best money you'll spend. Invest in that if you're going to do YouTube.
Love it.
Because you'll see my channel will explode here in about a month, because I'm practicing all the things that she's doing.
I'm excited to see it. And it's cool that people get to be there for this journey, because by the time they actually see this, they're going to go on there and be like, what, 30? No, you got bank. 3,000.
You were on Ellen. Yeah, that's right. Put it out there.
So much. I always love chatting with you. For those of you guys who decide that you want to keep these recordings and watch them over, Jenny's going to be back with some tips and tricks, and it's going to be totally worth it for you. So please think about that. I think it's valuable for you. Thank you for watching. Thanks for being here.